Welcome to The Growth Project, a podcast brought to you by AMPLOS. Dr. Drew Brannon, joined by Dr. Milt Lowder today. Yeah, excited to be jumping into this one today. A little bit different approach today. We're kind of in two different places versus the studio. So, Milt, you going to be able to roll with that a little bit okay today?
It is an adjustment for you and I both to be working from home. This is something new for you and for me. I don't think our families love it. I'll be glad we move into our new office this week and ready to
Yes.
go. But it'll be a different look, a different format. But I look forward to the conversation as always.
My family has not volunteered to help with the move in, but in some ways I feel like they have by just making it known that they'd rather me be somewhere else. So, yeah. Exactly. Okay. All right. So as we jump into it today, we're going to be covering some ground and really related to two topics. And I think we probably know more about one than the other, but we're bringing together the two topics or concepts of the definition of success and then an audit.
Yeah.
So our friends out there who are accountants are probably thinking, what in the world do you guys think you know about audits? And I think if we're talking about a professional audit, we know almost nothing. We cannot help you with that. But we do know how to design some diagnostic type audit exercises. So that's what we'll be doing today.
Yeah, I think those two go hand in hand so well because a lot of times, Drew, we don't take the time to really reflect, and we don't live with intentionality and purpose around what's really important. And it isn't until the end of our life or end of our career or the end of a year that we really look back and reflect and say, "Hey, was I did I become the person I want to become? Did I live my life in a way that was meaningful to me? Did I find the success that I dreamed about?" I think that's what we really want to talk about today as you look at this audit of success to go ahead and have the courage to have some self-reflection. One, how do you define success? What does that really look like in your life? And why this is so important. How many people do we meet with, Drew, that we ask them, hey, how do you define success? They got to really think about it and chew on it. And then once they get their definition, we say, well, how successful do you feel? The majority of people we work with say not very.
Mm. Yeah.
And so this is a time to kind of settle up and say, if you were the person that one doesn't know how I truly define success, or two, you don't feel very successful in your life or in your career, this podcast is an opportunity for you to really merge those two worlds. To not only rethink success, but then how are you living your life? How are you spending your time? How are you spending your energy? How are you interacting with others? How are you spending your money in a way that is consistent with your definition of success?
Right on. And I think most people haven't really gone through the full needed exercise of defining success. And if they have, they haven't written it down. And if maybe they've written it down, they aren't looking at it with consistency. So there's a lot to it to get the most out of it. So, what we have set up today is we're going to go through a series of questions that are intended to serve as an audit of sorts for you. But before we get into the questions, definitely want and need to frame what we mean when we see success. So get excited over there. I'm gonna throw this one to you. Can you help frame for our listeners a definition of sorts on the topic of success?
Yeah, so those of you who listen or know me well know I have a hard time coming up with a good idea on my own. And so John Wooden's definition of success, Drew, I don't know how long it's been a part of your life, but at least since I started studying psychology, it's been the foundation of how I've tried to live my life, and how we've tried to measure it. And so John Wooden's definition of success is this: that it is the peace of mind, which is the direct result in the self satisfaction, knowing I did my best to become the best I'm capable of becoming. The peace of mind, direct result, self satisfaction, knowing I did my best to become the best I'm capable of becoming. At AMPLOS, what we really talk about is success is just the worthy pursuit of a worthy goal. It's how we've tried to shorten it for ourselves and for the people we work with.
Yep. And so keep in mind, listen really closely to the words and the language in there. When we say worthy pursuit of the worthy goal, it's more about the pursuit of the goal than it is the result or outcome associated with it. And what we
So
know is if we're pursuing with all we have, The reality is sometimes it works out in our favor, sometimes it doesn't. But it's less about that outcome and more about the pursuit.
Yeah, and so 2 reasons. 1, that's so important. 2, I can't control the outcome.
Right.
We're recording this at the start of college football season. The goal is, hey, we're trying to beat LSU this Saturday. You guys are trying to beat.
We're hoping to go beat Marshall. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
so
hope
you
it works
so
out.
you, yeah, and so that's the goal. We can't control the outcome. And so if my success is dependent on something that's outside of my control, then I'm automatically setting a limit on how successful I can feel. So that's one problem, that success cannot be just outcome oriented. 2 is what we know in life, that once we achieve that goal, we take very seldom joy in achieving the goal. We go right on to the next thing. And so a lot of the people we work with, success is about achieving a goal or getting a certain amount of money. I remember in my career, I'm thinking, man, if I could just get to this age, if I could get to this stage, if I could get to this level of income, if I could get this level of opportunity, then I'm going to feel really successful. And I had to really flip that because it took me longer to get my career going. It took me longer. I didn't go back to school till later. And you see the world saying you should be at this stage of life, you should be this far along. That I really had to come to grips with. These are worthy goals I'm pursuing, and somewhat I get to define my own success.
But you better define your own success because if you start to define it relative to others, you're going to be chasing something forever. Yeah.
Yes. And the harder you try to find success or happiness, the further away you're going to get.
Okay, so let's get into this. Now that we've kind of framed it up and we've clarified when we say success, what do we mean? And what we're going to be sharing with you now here over the next few minutes is a series of questions that are intended for you to use as you audit your pursuit of success. And I'm gonna go ahead and forewarn our listeners, these are heavy hitters. So these are not just kind of surface level type questions that would allow you to kind of skate by with a minimal investment in self-reflection. Instead, these are heavy hitters that are going to require you to really dig deep and be honest.
Yeah, and so look at this from with a lot of courage as you reflect, and we know that shame and guilt are terrible motivators. And so this podcast is not to convict you or to make you feel less than. It's to really challenge you to define what is success to you. How do you define it? And then are your behaviors and actions in life consistent with that? So I appreciate you saying that from the very beginning, Drew, that this is going to take a lot of courage and hopefully convict you to think deeply and meaningfully about how you're living your life. And can you narrow that gap between who you are and who you truly want to be and how you truly want to live?
All right, so I'm gonna jump in here and put the first question out there, and then Milt, we'll invite you to just comment on kind of the relevance of this to the pursuit of success, maybe kind of the dangers, the watch outs a little bit, and we'll kind of use some of that framework for each of them. So like I said, heavy hitters only here. This is the big boys club. So beginning with the first one here, what does your calendar say you believe about success? What does your calendar say you believe about success?
You ask me personally, or you ask me to reflect on the.
Yeah, let's do the latter. Let's do the
Is
latter.
this
Yeah.
an intervention? Is this I see what we're doing. We aren't really recording the podcast. You're wanting to challenge me.
No. So yeah, go ahead and just reflect on this for us.
This one becomes evident because, especially in America, like we grasp on the pursuit of the American dream, and we forget that it's the pursuit of happiness, and we think it's financially, or we think we're making an impact. And I do believe that work is a significant part of our life, and that we should be fully committed and engaged to fulfilling our purpose. But when I think about your calendar, what do they say in football? The film doesn't lie.
Mhm.
We watch film, and I'm sure you got, like, you break down every play, and they get a grade on every play. So the film doesn't lie. So the calendar really is a reflection of how you're spending your time. And I think the hardest part for me in my life, when I think about what do I really believe success is in life and what do I want my legacy to even be, who gets the best of me? Where do I spend my most time and effort and energy? And I think the calendar reflects that, um, is indicative of what I truly believe about success is.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, let's face it, especially for busy working professionals, a full calendar is such a badge of honor.
Yeah.
It's such a metric, isn't it? That like, oh, okay, you must be doing something right if you've got a full calendar. And if it's hard to get on your calendar, man, well done. Like you must be just really kind of operating at a high level. And if you're always busy and if you're hard to get a hold of, and it's like, okay, what does that mean? Like, what's underneath
Yeah.
that? What are the implications of that? What are the ripple effects of that reality, especially related to what you say success is? And that's the tension that I think really comes into play for plenty of folks where he or she is kind of saying and maybe writing and maybe even kind of promoting this idea of here's what success means to me, but then if we go back and do the basic calendar audit, something doesn't add up here, right? There's a
Yeah.
mismatch, there's a discrepancy, there's a gap. And that's where we want to invite you to really press into that and ask yourself, does your calendar align to what you say success is? That's the question.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things in my life that I'm sure you get as well, a lot of emails start with, or a lot of voicemails start with, "Hey, I know you're really busy, but
Yeah, right.
I know you're really busy, but," and we can fall into that trap is, well, that is significant or relays my importance, as you said, it's a badge of honor that I'm really busy, but busy doing what? Are you
Mhm.
busy doing things that matter? Are you busy? For us, the business hopefully is consistent with our vision of why we work at AMPLOS and how are we helping other people. And so that's the challenge of your calendar. What does it reflect about how you spend your time, how you spend your energy, and how can you make some adjustments based on that?
Yeah.
That's a great
Yeah.
one.
So yeah, I think it's important to because I agree with what you said. The film doesn't lie, and neither does the calendar. And like let's really get to the granular on this for just a moment before we leave this question. There are too many people out there touting this whole notion of family first, and yet it doesn't look that way on the calendar.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, we aren't out here kind of suggesting we all align to the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week. I don't know that that's really possible for most of us, nor necessary. But we do have to ask ourselves, like, if it's a family first type thing, is there evidence of that on my calendar?
And what does that really mean in your life? What's the
Yeah,
harmony that you can find between, like, we know, Drew, we
mm,
spend a lot of time in this with other people, is what happens when
sure.
your values come into conflict or your beliefs come into conflict. Like, I want to be great at home, but I want to be great at work. For us, we want to make a difference in people's lives at work, but we don't want to make a difference in the people's lives at home. And so when those values come into conflict, how are you managing and trying to solve that conflict?
All right, let's hit this next one. You got it for us?
Yeah, so now we're really getting into all the significant parts of your life. Not only what does your calendar, now what does your bank account say? And if you kind of had the QuickBooks download of how are you spending your money, and how is that indicative of what you believe about success?
Yeah, we are going straight to it, aren't we? Just like we promised that we would. We've taught that exercise for years now. As we get into these kind of first two here, of like, if you really want to find out what matters to a person, go look at their bank account, go look at their calendars, and you'll quickly
Yep.
see certainly what I would call kind of some of the big rocks of importance. And this is undoubtedly one of them, right? So we're all given a certain amount of money that we can do something with. And it's really not about how much or how little it is. It's about how is it prioritized. And I think that if you kind of look at where the money's going and you think about what the ramifications of those things are relative to investments. Like what type of investments are being made. And it's not that we're saying like, here, you shouldn't go on vacation. You should just dump everything into your 401k so that it's not about that. It's like, hey, okay, how are you leveraging your resources to create memories
Yes.
for your family? Like that's an example. If part of how you think about success is legacy and the welfare of my family and that type of stuff. Okay, like, are you putting your money behind that? And those are important things to really think about. And I think if you aren't, then that's data that you really want to know and need to know of how what money says about success for you.
Yeah, and I think this is the one that we can get caught up with is in America especially of, hey, how much you make and what your net worth is, especially you kind of hold that dear. And so what
Yeah,
happens if that is going away? And so we also don't want to live in the assumption that everybody listening to the podcast has plenty of extra money around. And
sure.
so your money, your bank account may be reflective of you're just getting by, you're in survival mode and you're trying to provide for your family, you're trying to pay rent, you're trying to fight off inflation, you're trying to do all these things. And so your money may be kind of used very practically just to help you survive in this moment. And and
Yeah.
and then you got to even take a deeper dive of are you kind of falling into the trap this money can buy you happiness? Or you
Hmm.
prioritize your kids' well-being, that we don't say no to our children, that we don't want them to feel like they're less than or they're being left out, and so we're spending more money on them than we should. I think that's also, are you giving any money away? Or are you just using your money for your own benefit, or are you using your money for the benefit of others?
Yep.
And I think that's a little bit of what you're there's how much are you giving away to charity? What are the things you truly believe in? Those are some of the kind of the questions we really want. You believe in education? Are you putting money aside and investing in your own education? Are you investing in learning? Are you investing in opportunities for your children to learn? Those are some things that you really got to look at. Are you spending your time and money on things that matter?
Yeah, and just very practically, like we've been in no shortage of conversations with people over the years whose bank accounts are extremely healthy, and yet their personal lives aren't.
Yes.
And those people don't feel very successful. And most of us would agree that some of the realities that take place when people are struggling in their personal life would indicate and suggest they're not very successful in kind of an objective way.
Man, Drew, you just kind of, I put the first two questions together in my mind as you were saying that. We work with plenty of people who their bank accounts look very healthy, but the calendar, it does not give them any time or margin to be present. And
Yeah,
so,
right.
one hand, like we may say success, the pursuit of a worthy goal, but your bank account says success is about how much money I have and how and what that money is going to do for me, and it's going to take care of me and provide for me. But it comes at a cost because my calendar doesn't allow me time to use the money to enjoy the money.
Yeah.
I can use my father as a great example. His whole life growing up on a cotton farm, full of hard work, full of sacrifice for his family, just very challenging times. And he kept dreaming about, hey, one day I'm going to buy a Winnebago. He couldn't say Winnebago, he called it a Winnebargo, and travel the country. I'm going to take some land, Milt. He exactly told me where it is. And I'm going to build a pond. I'm going to build a cabin with a deck overlooking the pond so I can wake up in the morning and drink my coffee and just fish off the deck.
Mm.
And he never made the time and he never spent the money. And he got diagnosed with dementia and put in assisted living and never got to use the time that the calendar would provide when he had the time and he had the money, but he never kind of married the two.
Mm. Man, I appreciate you sharing that. That's a precise example of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So those two do often run together, right? Calendar and money and bank accounts. There tends to be a lot of overlap there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know there's a few others we want to get to here. So let me throw this next one out that I want us to discuss, and that is, what would your kids say you believe about success? What would your kids say you believe about success? If this is a question you've never asked, and it's very easy to do it, you just approach your kids And keep in mind, you'll get a developmentally appropriate answer from them. So if you ask your 6-year-old, you get a 6-year-old developmentally appropriate answer typically. But if you went up to one of your kids and say, "Hey, what do you think I believe about what matters in life or what
Mm.
success looks like in life?" Buckle your seatbelt for the answer. But what would they say? Right? Like, how do you feel about what they might say, and how confident would you feel asking them these questions? Those are the kind of things you really want to contemplate.
Yeah, I can't help but go to Clarence Kellen's quote. He said, "My father did not tell me how to live. He lived, and I learned by watching him."
Mm,
And so, how you have lived your life and how you spend your time and how you spend your energy, your kids will give you a great, honest answer about what you think is really important. And it takes a lot of
mhm.
courage. You and I have both asked our children that.
That's right.
And on one hand, it seems they've paid attention to what I believe success is. But the other hand, there's some parts of it that you hope you have a chance to correct their view and change the lens.
Yeah, and I think we sell our kids a little bit short when it comes to questions like that. I think we're as adults, we're pros at kind of telling ourselves that, oh well, they can't do that, or they wouldn't, or they're not old enough or mature enough. And the reality is, kids are truth tellers. That's one of their greatest
Yes.
gifts. They lack filters, and that's one of the greatest gifts I think they give others, is they interact without a filter. Sometimes that's super beneficial.
So expand that. Okay, what do your kids? What does your family? What does your significant other say? What do your colleagues say? What do your clients say about
Mhm.
what success is? And so not only I love starting with the kids because I love the truth they will give you and the honest answer they will give you.
Yeah.
But then keep expanding that out about other people in your life. And the only way they would know that is probably more about how you live your life and
Mhm.
how you interact with them. What's it feel like to be touched by you, to work with you, to be loved by you? What is really important in your life?
Yeah, so
What?
I think expanding the circle there to other key people, that's what we're really talking about, is key people. I started with kids because it's just always
Yeah.
educational. It's powerful.
So what we should do, Drew, you and I should lead the way. I guess you've got two at home. I've got one left. But find a way in the next week to ask the question, and maybe we can do a follow up excerpt to say, okay, what did our kids say? If we're going to be,
Mm.
um, we'll be vulnerable and lead the way. I'm going to find a way to ask that again. I
Ooh,
ask it about every few years, but this will be a
yeah,
good exercise.
no doubt. Okay, let's hit these other last two we got here.
So one I think is really good that you came up with is, well, what is your daydreaming say about your definition of success and how successful you are? What?
Yeah, I mean, we all do it, right? We all have those moments in our days where our mind kind of takes off to different places due to a variety of triggers, I would imagine, that kind of put that ball in motion. When that happens, where do your thoughts go? What are the themes? Where do you consistently find yourself daydreaming? Who are the characters in the story? What are the challenges that are there? What are the hopes, the aspirations? There's a whole narrative going on. If you do your best to kind of deconstruct that narrative of your daydreaming, it's telling. It's very, very telling about what you believe about success. So I think in the process of doing that, you can find some things that you probably feel great about and you're proud of, and then you probably can find some things where it's like, man, that is really selfish, or that is really missing the mark, or why do I find myself
Hmm.
daydreaming about that so often when it doesn't at all agree with what I say success is? There's a lot that can come up there.
Yeah, and so to me, I think that the hard part for me, um, the older we get, the less we tend to dream. And so to me, we see so many people in life that are just resigned to this is my life. And they quit dreaming, or they dream about this fantasy world of retirement, or
Mm,
this thing like I just want to always go on a vacation, man. If I can only get this to go on vacation, again, we think the experience is going to bring us happiness, but this is really what do you dream about doing? What's the life you've always wanted to live? If I could only do this, if I could find a way. And I think part of not only when you dream about, look for those moments of affirmation in your life when you find yourself kind of walking in your calling, so to speak, where you are completely present and find joy and people are affirming the work that you do, how does that align up with your dreams?
Hmm.
And then the dreaming with that definition of success, John Maxwell has this great quote: if your dreams don't align with if your habits don't support your dreams, you got to change your dreams or change your habits. And so we would change that. If you're dreaming about success in a way that does not line up with your definition of success today or your life, then you got to change your definition of success or change your dreams. And we want you to keep dreaming,
Right.
and then what is that reflective of what you've accomplished so far, quote unquote, about success? But really, more importantly, what is it you've dreamed of doing that you've always wanted to do? And maybe some of you have already hit that stage of life where you've accomplished more than you ever thought you could accomplish, and your dreams have been greater than financially or whatever that may be. Well, maybe now it's about dreaming about who you want to become.
Mm.
And that is indicative of success, that you did the best you're capable of becoming. That's where we really want you to focus your time and energy around your dreams, and kind of measure up this gap between, hey, I really dream about this and I really believe this about success, but I'm not doing anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can find some things as you explore that question that can be really compelling evidence of either you kind of being on the path that you say you want to be on, or maybe not on the path, which
Yes.
is healthy. It's healthy to see that.
Well,
Okay,
as
last one. We got one more here.
okay, we got time for one more. Good. Okay. I
Yeah,
wasn't
time
sure.
for one more. So the last one here is we'll need is man, this one really I feel like all these, like we said, are heavy hitters, but this one is really getting into it. What does your treatment of others say
Mm,
you believe about success? What does your treatment of others say you believe about success? I'll let you take that one.
thanks. I think the first thing I think about is it transactional or transformational? And I think so much, Drew, in our language and work with coaches and leaders, that's what we talk about. Are you a transformational leader or are you a transactional leader? And too many times our definition of success in this world, especially, I don't know why I'm beating on America so much today, that that I'm gonna look out for me. Like I'm gonna get mine. And so how I treat others, are they a means to an end to make me happy? Is your view of this is what you deserve, this is how you deserve to be treated, and you don't treat others the way you want to be treated, you treat them as objects in your path, in your world, that we are using them to get to a level of success, that it's about me. And I think that tell is very telling about how you really define success. Versus, is your success really about helping others, about helping them be who they were created to be, about investing in them, being interested in them, being curious about them, and not making it about you. I think this is where the rubber really meets the road. And then now, not only our view of how we treat them, but even what we were saying about our children, what would their view be about what success is to you, about how you treat them?
Mm, yeah. I don't know that I have anything to add to that, quite honestly. I think you kind of, yeah, I think nailed very well said, kind of nailed that, and that I just don't know that we spend enough time or effort asking others um, what they really see in us and from us, because that's really what a lot of what you're saying there is like, if how does my treatment of those around me say a message of what's important to me?
Yeah.
And I just don't know that we ask those questions to ourselves or others enough.
I think we can get so busy in our own world, and just fall into the routine and monotony of living the way we've always lived.
Mhm.
And what we try to do at Amplos, and this one really around success, is can we remove the blinders for just a second and say, okay, what do I really believe about success? And and how do I live that in a way that's consistent to what I believe?
All right, so we didn't come with anything other than the real deal today. I know we got to finish up, but I hope that everybody can take on the challenge, right? Can you digest this success audit and give it an honest reflection? And I would just issue an additional challenge is, as you go through this, find someone you care about to talk with them about your answers, your thoughts, your reflections. I think it will only add to the exercise. It'll only add to the value of you going through and doing something like this.
Yeah, and just a reminder as you're challenging yourself, it takes a lot of courage and it's hard to do by yourself. It's hard to do in isolation. That the goal of life is not perfection and success or happiness in our relationships, but it is progress. And
Yeah.
I hope you can look at this podcast as another way to help you make progress into who you've always dreamed of being.
Okay. So with that, always thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Look forward to the next time on the Growth Project. Take care.